Hello and happy the last day of May. We're just about to June. I'm going to get to some of the podcast numbers right after this drop just to tell you all how this month was absolutely crazy, to say the least. But for today's episode, going to do another player season review. I think I've done basically the entire top six now. I've done Sid, I've done Jake, I've done Brian Rust, I have done Evgeni Malkin, I've done Jason Zucker. I'm probably missing one. Well, yeah, the other player that was most in the top six most of the year was Danton Heinen. So he is going to be gotten to today, and then for the rest of the offseason, we're gonna at times, sometimes I'll have the days where I don't do player season reviews, but the rest will have the bottom six players, and then most of the defense, and then the goaltender. So today will be Danton Heinen season review, how he did, what I would look to do with him over the offseason, what contract, what number makes sense for him. Also going to get into a player who has had history with this team. Does it make sense to bring him back on a little bit of a flyer, maybe as a power play specialist, or, see if there's anything there left at even strength? Going to go into his numbers and, of course, a couple other things as well. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, as I literally sit back down, I notice our pool bag is right back here on YouTube. But I've been trying to keep this place as clean as it can be. But you know what? Whatever. That can slide at least for one day. Everything else I think is mostly pretty good. But we've made it to the last day of May. 30,000 downloads this month. I cannot say enough how great you all are for supporting this podcast. That's easily the best month in this show's history. And I've been doing this for getting close to 3 years at this point. I started back in the fall of 2019 as a senior in college. I'll be 25 this year. So just can't thank you all enough for supporting the podcast. 30,000 monthly downloads is something I never thought I would ever see. When I took this, I was like, you know what, it's going to be like an escape for me to really talk about the team. I was still writing about them, but, kind of wanted to transition and try new stuff. But, I never thought the podcast, would do these kind of numbers, to say the least. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. New month now. I'm not expecting to hit 30K this month. Obviously, it would be a dream come true if I did. I know the off season is going to have a little bit less content because people, they have other stuff going on with their lives. But my job is still to bring you all daily Penguins content for the month of June. July is, I think, when it's going to go down to 3, at least after the first half of the month, I'm pretty sure. And then, it'll be, full on off season mode for the show. But let's jump right into it. So today's player season review is, of course, Danton Heinen. And he played 76 games this year. Had 18 total goals, 15 of them were at even strength. Remember, this was a bargain signing by Ron Hextall. he didn't even get $2 million on that deal. I'm pretty sure it was like a 1-year, $1 million deal. And he outplayed that. He outplayed that. Well, I almost had something wrong with my eye. He outplayed that and then some. It was really not even close. 865 minutes at 5v5 this year, 54% of the shot attempts at even strength. So when he was on the ice, the Penguins were just getting all these attempts to the net. Goals for 45, 38 again, so 54% of the actual goals. Expected goals, though, 56.8%. That is the second best of his career going back to 2017-18 when he was with the Boston Bruins. When he was on the ice, the Penguins had 57.3%. Again, that's the second highest number of his career going back to the 2017-18 season. High danger, 58% of the high danger chances for the Penguins when he was on the ice. That is a career high. 51.8% of the high danger goals. And then his on-ice shooting percentage was 9.1 this year. That was a career high. And honestly, that's not really that high. It was below 10%. If it was somewhere like, 14, 15, 16%, then I would probably be like, okay, this is probably going to go down here a little bit. But, it was really not that much higher from last year. He only shot 7.69%. And last year he had, let me just make sure I got this right, 6.5 goals. I believe he had 7 total goals with the Ducks, from what I remember correctly. So, his shooting percentage didn't really go up that much. There's just this year he was actually finishing and capitalizing on his chances while also playing in a better system. And, that was the big thing. I said when they signed him, it was a couple of days after free agency last year. I was like, this is a player that he needed a change of scenery. He's going from a team that was very defense first to a team that is offense first, in a system where, he can really, use his shot as kind of like a deception. It definitely fools a lot of goaltenders, to say the least. His release is beautiful. Honestly, I know I talked about this a lot on the podcast during the season. He probably has one of the 3 best releases on this team. Outside of Jake Gensel, probably Sidney Crosby too. I think he probably has the best release on this team, and it's not really close, at least in my opinion. I would love to see them bring him back. I don't really think there was anything bad with him or wrong with him this year. I liked when he played with Evgeni Malkin. I wish I had the HockeyViz numbers in front of me. I just don't think I'm signed in. I'm honestly not signed into it. Maybe during a commercial break, I'll pause the recording and then log in and everything. But I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch on that line. They put him on there in the playoffs. Sometimes he would play on the third line with Jeff Carter, still produced decently well. And yes, Jeff, my good buddy, of course, gave me the easiest bet of all time. Said, I'll pay you Cockeye Barbecue up in Ohio if he scores 10 or more goals. I'm like, I will gladly take that. That's for damn sure. And sure enough, I actually almost did double for nothing, but I'm like, I don't want to risk it, because then I would have had to buy him Cockeye. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take what I have, and we will roll with that. But now I was able to log into HockeyViz, Micah Blake, McCurdy stuff, and even strength offense this year, plus 8% relative to league average, a whole blob of red in the front of the net. That just means he's getting to the high danger areas and he's getting his goals there. Another part of the heat map, right above or almost right at the left face-off circle. And again, that's where his release comes into play there. It's that good. Defensively, minus 0.2 expected goals against per 60, minus 5% in parentheses. A lot of blue on the rink there. And the only spot where it's red, where he was giving up chances when he was on the ice as a forward, right at the blue line. You look around this heat map, nothing at the circles, nothing in front of the net, nothing in that prime slot area about 15 to 20 feet out, a little bit of red outside maybe the right face-off circle. But other than that, he kept everything to the point. He was very good defensively for the Penguins this year. It was pretty crazy. Just how good he was. And, I don't really think a lot of people were talking about it enough going into the season. I think it was Jesse Marshall that had this pull back in September. I think I was in Cancun at the time with my girlfriend. And he was like, what are you really looking forward to for the season? And I said, you know what, Jesse, an underrated thing, Danton Heinen, he's coming over from a defensive first system. He did not have a good year with the Ducks. I want to see what he can do in an offensive based system like he was with Boston before he got traded. And sure enough, he was really freaking good. Now, as for what the Penguins should do moving forward, I think they should 100% bring him back. I think it would be just really dumb if they didn't. I mean, he's obviously going to get a qualifying offer, and he should. He's also an RFA, so they have his rights. Sure, could a team offer sheet him? Yeah, probably not going to happen. But this is a player that, I would bring back for more than just a year. I would maybe do a 2 to 3 year deal. If you can get him for maybe around $3 million, I would do that. I don't think he's not going to ask for, I don't think 3.6 to 4 million per season or anything like that, or 3.5. I think, you can get him for 2.5 to 3. That would be a pretty big steal, in my opinion, especially with, the value that he brought to the team this year. And, he's durable. You can play him in the top 6, you can play in the bottom 6, play him on the second power play unit, play him on the penalty kill. He was very good in the playoffs. If I refresh those stats here, on natural stats, still played in all 7 games. When he was on the ice, the Penguins had 52% of the shot attempts, 3 to 4 for goals, 4 goals against, but 55.4% of the expected goals, 52% of the scoring chances for the Penguins when he was on the ice, 59% of the high danger chances when he was on the ice, and he also had a couple goals in that series. He shot 5.3%, which is not even really that high. But he still was able to pot a couple of goals. The first one, won Game 3 for the Penguins. Remember, the Rangers erased that 3-goal deficit, and then Heinen won the game 5-4 with about 9 minutes left in the third period. And then he got the other goal in Game 7. So I am totally bringing him back. If obviously the cap allows for it, I do think it will. Even if the Penguins do bring back Evgeni Malkin and Chris Letang. Sorry that I keep peeling back here. This Avalanche Oilers game is just on crack, meth, whatever drug you want to call it. It's probably some of the best hockey I think I've ever watched. So that wraps up this first segment for what I would do with Danton Heinen this year and just how good of a player he was. I want him to get more power play time next year on the second unit. Want him to get more PK time. I thought he was a terrific fit with Evgeni Malkin. I want to see more time between those two together because, they weren't playing on a game-by-game basis. Obviously, Evgeni Malkin was hurt for the first half of the year. If Gino does come back and they bring Heinen back as an RFA, I would like to see, maybe like at least a 60-plus game sample size of those two together and see if it works because, for what they did this year, the numbers were pretty strong, to say the least. So, yeah, definitely a big fan of him coming back. Very good move by Ron Hextall. I know some people are not super high on him as a general manager. Trust me, he's definitely had his misses. But this one was surely a hit for the Penguins. Now, coming up in the next segment, we're going to get into this player that, I'm curious to see if maybe the Penguins will take a flyer on. He is an old friend from a couple of the Cup years. But before I get to that, you can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why should you choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business and do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. You can go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. You go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and you can write Locked On in their How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That is rockauto.com. I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. You want to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So, I'm going to ask this question very, very just low key here. Would anyone be opposed to Phil the Thrill coming back on a flyer? And yes, again, this is silly season. I have until July to talk about free agents, and I'm going to have plenty more. I'm going to get to my take on this in just a second, but I'm throwing that out there for you guys. What do you all think about Phil the Thrill coming back on a cheaper deal after what he did this season? And, 5 goals, 33 points at 5v5, made total of $8 million for his cap hit. I think 6.8 from Toronto, 1.2 for the Penguins. But now he is a UFA and he can choose where he wants to go. He probably should have been traded the last couple of years. The Coyotes decided not to do that. I was very surprised that he was not traded at the deadline this year. And now, I almost just lost my train of thought. And now, he doesn't have to be on a bad team anymore. He can go to a contender, maybe try to win another cup in his career. But, the numbers this year, at least underlying, he slipped the last 3 years, 49% of the shot attempts for the Coyotes when he was on the ice in 2020. Year before that, 46.6% of the shot attempts for the Coyotes. And this year, the Coyotes only had 44% of the shot attempts with him at even strength. Only 42% of the actual goals at 5v5. When he was on the ice, the Coyotes gave up a nice 69%. Before that, 40 to 41%. I mean, these numbers have cratered these last 3 years. Expected goals percentage this year, 42%. Only 42.7% of the scoring chances when he was on the ice for the Coyotes. 41.5% for high danger chances for, and then for high danger goals for, 43.4% of those. I mean, going back to his, honestly, his Penguin days, shot attempts wise, hovering in the 50 to 53%, actual goals wise with the Penguins, 58%, 54%, expected goals with the Penguins, 54%, right around 50. Most of those years, scoring chance wise, hovered around 50, decently. The high danger wise, a little below 40, but I also think, Evgeni Malkin's obviously not the most defensively responsible center. Maybe if it was super, super cheap, I wouldn't hate it. But based on these numbers, Jens, I just don't think it's a good idea to bring him back. I mean, again, like his production has really just cratered these last few years. I mean, funny enough, the Penguins actually got out of that contract at the right time. And I know it didn't seem like it a few years ago when they did trade him, but the more I think about it, and I understand that the return was not that good. POJ is the main player that's still there. He hasn't really come up yet too much. Got to see what they have in him. I think he was the main part of that trade from the beginning. Alex Galchenyuk was just a total failure. I was super high on him. I thought he was going to be really good. And then all of a sudden, he flat out stinks. But 8 total goals this year. This was the first time he's had less than 10 goals in any season in the NHL. Even last year with the Coyotes, 20 goals, 43 points, 56 games. Before that with Arizona, 14 goals, 38 points. Even strength this year, 6 of the 8 actually came at 5v5. The other 2 were from the power play. 12 of his, I'm just making sure here real quickly. 12 of his 44 assists came on the power play. So he actually did have 32 assists at 5v5 this year, even though Natural Stat Trick is telling me that he had 28 total assists. Either Hockey Reference is just lying to me, or the numbers were just not updated yet. But this was still, production wise, it's not bad from Phil. I mean, playmaking wise, but goal scoring wise, I mean, I just don't think he really moves the needle that much. And right as I turn around, the Avalanche, I thought Kel McCarr scored again. Still 7-5. That fooled me there. Again, though, I do think this is a player, he's going to be wanted by teams. I'm sure he easily could have been traded by the Coyotes at the deadline here. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's still a good player, but he's not nearly as close as he used to be. And I think, that therein, lies the issue. He's 34 years old. I don't, maybe he does a 1-year deal for a team. I would have to say it's going to be a 2 to 3 deal for a much lower cap hit. I mean, maybe he gets $4 million. I probably would not pay him that at this point, but I know some people would be all for Phil coming back just for the vibes and all that stuff. Me though, I'm not a big fan of it just because, he's really regressed ever since he got traded. I mean, his shooting percentage just cratered. His goal scoring has gone down basically every year since the trade. I know defensively, it's not really his thing. You look at HockeyViz, plus 11% compared to league average. There's a whole blob of red in the defensive zone right in front of the net. That's not good enough. And, part of that could be due to playing on the Coyotes, who are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. But even strength offense, most of the red comes from below the right circle dot, to the side of the net. Not a lot of stuff from, 5-10 feet out, or even 15 to 20 feet out, like in that prime time slot area. It's mainly just that spot from the right circle where he's done his damage. And again, I just don't think that's good enough for him. So that's my take on that. Let me know what you all think. Do you think Phil Kessel, should the Penguins take a flyer on him to potentially have him return it? Could that be one of the changes that they decide to make just because, they're going to have to save, cap space somewhere, and, bringing Phil in may not be the worst idea, but it's one that, I'm not really super big on, to say the least. Still have a little more to get to for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast, so stick around for that coming up in our next segment. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So, we've reached the Final Four here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Lightning versus the Rangers, the Avalanche versus the Oilers, and that game one tonight has already been absolutely spectacular. I absolutely love watching these two teams go at it. The Eastern Conference Final should be interesting. I mean, I think Tampa should win that series, but I also said the same thing for Carolina. And then they looked very unimpressive. And honestly, again, I'm not trying to sound like a hater here or anything like that. It really is a shame that the Penguins did not finish off that series against the Rangers, because they definitely could have taken down that version of the Hurricanes. This year was prime for the taking for the Penguins. They're up 3-1. The vibes are good. You're 25 minutes away in Game 5. You're less than 6 minutes away in Game 7. Carolina, they didn't really look all that good against Boston. Sure, they won on home ice, but they looked terrible on the road. It comes to the second round against the Rangers. They absolutely steamrolled them I shouldn't say steamrolled them in the first 2 games. The Rangers gave Game 1 away and then stunk in Game 2. They only scored 1 goal in the 2 games. But after that, Carolina just looked really bad. I have no idea what happened to them. That was not the same team I saw from the regular season, to say the least. Their special teams took a page out of the Penguins book in that series. Their power play in the playoffs, get this stat, Jens, 7 for 54. I know the Penguins have their power play issues. 5-on-3s be damned. They're really bad. 5-on-4s have not been that good in the playoffs for the last couple of years. But things could be worse. I will say that 7 for 54 is an absolute disgrace. Whoever runs their power play should be fired. That really cost them the series. Their penalty kill, which was, compared to the Penguins' penalty kill, which was really good for most of this year, it was even better than that unit. And it just went down to the face of the earth. I mean, the Rangers' power play just owned them. And, I understand, some of the takes people are saying, it's fluky for the Rangers. How are they here? But, again, last I checked, goaltending and special teams are very important parts of hockey. Sure, has there been a little luck for the Rangers to get this far? Yes. But I also will say this. Any freaking team gets lucky when they go on a deep run. You have to get a bounce. You have to get calls that go your way. You have to get lucky saves. You have to get, say a puck goes off a player's skate and in the net. That's playoff hockey. They're small sample size series. And at the end of the day, sometimes the better teams from the regular season don't end up winning the series, or even during the playoffs. Sometimes a team that outplays another team for most of the time does not always win. You have to live with it. It's whatever. That said, the Rangers, Igor Shesterkin turned it on in that series. Their power play continued to be awesome. 5-on-5 numbers be damned. I don't know if that's going to continue to hold against the Tampa Bay Lightning team that will bury them, I think, at 5v5. But you know what? The Rangers and their fans should probably not give a flying crap. They're here. It's the first time they've been there since 2015. They're not going to apologize for it. It's whatever. Congratulations to them. I have no problem, being classier, whatever. As I'm not, people have come in my mentions and say, the Penguins blew a 3-1 lead. I'm like, okay. I mean, I've seen the team. I'm 24 years old. I've seen the team win 3 championships since 2009. I to be honest, I do not care anymore. I got over that series in basically a day. The Jacob Trouba stuff, I'm not going to get into it. He had a couple hits that maybe crossed the line, a couple others. I think that last one last night was pretty clean, I should say. It's definitely annoying that he puts himself in these positions. But under the league rules, it's a clean play. That's how they see it. There's not going to be any supplemental discipline, nor should there have been any supplemental discipline. You want to have those hits out of the game, take it up with the league. I'm of the opinion, I think any contact to the head, whether it was incidental or not, should be penalized. Maybe you adopt the IIHF rules, with the NHL is never going to do that. So again, it's a waste of time talking about that. And, I'm excited for that series. Can New York dethrone the defending champs? Can Shesterkin outplay Vasilevsky? Until someone beats Vasilevsky 4 out of 7 times, I am not going to take most of the other teams seriously. I think Colorado can maybe do it. The Rangers, though, we'll see. It all comes down to potentially if Braden Point plays in this series. He's been banged up with an injury since the Toronto series. He's had a week and a half off to rest. We'll see if he'll be in the lineup. But again, kudos to the Rangers. They may not be, the flashiest team, but, they remind me of the 2017 Penguins. They have a lot of high-end talent. They got good PDO right now. Matt Murray in 2017 was .937. Shesterkin in this past series was .950. And again, I'm not comparing the two goalies, but I'm just saying, both their goaltenders in that run for the Penguins and this for the Rangers have played at a very high level. And the Penguins special teams in that cup run were really freaking good, as are the Rangers right now. Penguins also got badly outplayed at 5v5 during those playoffs. The Rangers have done that here as well. But you know what? Again, they shouldn't apologize to anyone. At the end of the day, they're here. Other teams are not. And they are a lot of steps ahead in their rebuild. So at the end of the day, for all of y'all that listening, you can hate watch the series all you want. I hope for the Rangers to lose. I'm just going to hope for a good series between two pretty good teams. The Rangers have a lot of great high-end talent that are fun to watch. Let's see, can this team of all teams, take down the Dragon here, or slay the Dragon, I should say. My predictions overall: Avalanche in 6. Though that could change if Darcy Kemper's out, and I'm going to take the Bolts in 6. I was going to go 5, but I'm like, I don't think Shesterkin's going to lose 4 out of 5 games. So I'll say Bolts in 6. I really like how Tampa's playing right now. This is going to be obviously an even steeper challenge for the Rangers to win. I do like for us to have a Tampa Bay Colorado final, but let's just watch this get St. Louis, Edmonton, New York now. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. I'll have another one on June 1st, of course, to start the new month. So I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and I will talk to you all on Wednesday.